Hello everyone, my name is Jared Carlson and I'm an implementation consultant here at PeopleMatter. Today we'll be showing you all how to use the PeopleMatter platform from a location manager's perspective, but I want to show you guys a quick glimpse into the application itself so you understand what the applicants are going through. So this is what your application will look like going forward, and on the left-hand side you'll see a list of all the items they'll need to complete to go through the application process. The applicant will be guided through this entire process, being required to answer everything that's required, and you all will only receive a fully complete application. So until the applicant has submitted that application, it will not show up in your system. Accessing your PeopleMatter site can be very simple for you all. All you'll need to do is simply go to the NPC web portal, and you'll see an option there for PeopleMatter under the operations item. And you'll be able to single sign on or quickly access the PeopleMatter site without having to type in a username and password again. And when you log in, you'll be taken to this work file page. The work file is going to be your home or landing page where you can edit your account information and see your current employment information. You'll quickly notice that important buttons in our system are big orange buttons. In the top left-hand corner, you'll see our workspaces where you can jump back file if you ever need to, but below that you'll see information regarding your employment specific to NPC. So the employees section is where an individual goes to view the documents they've signed, as well as complete those items if they have anything outstanding. The administrator section is where you will go to complete the hiring process. In Workspaces Administrator, you'll be taken to a home where you can quickly different parts of the system to complete the hiring process. On the home screen, you'll see a bunch of quick links that you can use to jump to those different processes. But I want to focus on those first three items here first of all. Applicants, first of all, are individuals that have applied to one of your store locations. A candidate, on the other hand, is someone that has applied, but you've moved along in the application process. And lastly, a team member is an individual that you've hired into your location. Every single person within our system will fall under one of those three categories. You'll need to navigate to the correct one to find an individual at any given time. But let's go ahead and take a look at the applicant pool itself. And you'll see in this applicant pool that you'll see all the individuals that have applied to your location. As your applicant pool grows, you'll need to narrow down that pool or filter on that pool. And you can use our filters up here, first of all being the name search, where you can search for an individual by name. But you can also use our filters below that to narrow down on different items. First of all, the units filter will allow you to narrow down onto a specific unit if you have rights over multiple units. The positions filter will allow you to narrow down a specific position that you may be hiring for. So let's say you're looking for a server, you can type in server there and find your server position. If we check that off, we'd be narrowed down applied to the server position. The availabilities filter is going to give you the ability to narrow down to an individual that said they're available for a certain shift. So if we needed someone for Tuesday nights, for example, we could see someone that said at least they're available for Tuesday nights. The assessments filter is going to allow you to narrow down on individuals that received a certain assessment score. So those three scores are recommend, caution, and discontinue, but you'll also see them in quick colors of green for recommend, yellow for caution, or red for discontinue. The last filter you see here is the advanced filters. We can narrow down based on someone's tax credit processing results, as well as if they're a new applicant or not. An individual is considered a new applicant if you have not viewed their application before, and we can view all new applicants by checking off this box here. The status filters are narrowed down based on, and I'll show you how to assign those statuses here in a second, but the first status is saved or someone that you want to consider at a future time. So let's say someone applied for a server position, but you don't have any openings, but you feel like they'd be a great fit. you can put them in that save for later bucket, and you'd be able to access them later by going and checking off this status for save for later. The remove status is going to allow you to check off someone as removed within the system. In our system, we don't delete anyone from the system, but we have the ability to mark them as removed or only be able to view them if we checked off the status for removed. Lastly, we can filter down on the date applied. So we could use these quick filters of today or last 7 days to narrow down on when someone applied, but we can also enter in custom date ranges as well. You'll notice that our filters in our system are sticky filters, as we call them, or they won't go away unless you remove them. I think that'll be a big help for you all. Since you have common filters you'll probably be using, you can leave those there and never have to remove them. So if we remove these filters here, we can simply click the X box, or we can choose the clear all filters option. Let's go ahead and open up Dan Delivery Driver's record and take a further look at an application. When we click Dan's record here, we'll see on the left-hand side some basic information about him, his name, email address, phone number. We'll also see this At a Glance option here, which will quickly tell us if he's an applicant, a candidate, or H for hired if he's a team member. Below, we'll see those quick results on his assessments, as well as the availability that he gave during the application. So I'm currently logged in as the store manager for 1020, and you can see that I can not only see that Dan applied to my location, but I can see any other location that he applied to. I can't do anything with that, but I can see the fact that he has applied to another unit. I also have the ability to share Dan with another unit. If I think he's a good fit, but I don't have an opening currently, I can use the share with a different unit button, where I can choose another unit and share him in a specific position. And if I save that, that's going to add that location to the list that Dan is visible for. So you'll see that he's now visible at that location, and that store could proceed with the hiring process with them. Across the top, you'll see a few different tabs here, the first being the Applications tab. And this is where we'll see a full view of all the questions that Dan answered during the application. We have the ability to print off this application and take it with us if we need it. So we could take it with us to the interview if we chose to, and that'll download that in a PDF version, and we could print that off and take it with us to the interview. The assessments are going to give us the results of the assessment that Dan took during the application process. We now have the ability to see Dan's assessment score for every single job in our system, but if we only want to view the ones that he applied to, we can check off this box and see that he only applied to the delivery driver position. You'll see the assessments results for the job fit score use this bell curve, ranking someone on each category in two polars of either carefree in this example to detail-oriented. The little star tells us where Dan placed on that score, and you'll see there's a different location for each score as we progress through. So these categories range from tough-minded to conventional to being extroverted, stable, team-oriented, and each one is given a different score. The good impression score tells us whether or not we think Dan answered these questions in a frank or candid way, or we think he exaggerated his answers to simply tell us what we wanted to hear. Both of these scores will be given questions or behavioral-based interview questions for each category. So these are going to be a great way for you all to dig deeper into the individual. Based on the way they scored, you can ask these questions in the interview to see if the area of concern might be really a problem. So obviously you all are the hiring experts. This is just going to be a tool for you to ask the right questions in the interview to get an idea if someone is truly a good fit for that. Again, we can print off this report and take it with us to the interview if we chose to. You can also just access the interview questions if you want to and not print off the entire report as well. I want to show you that you can also quickly access these assessments from the left-hand side as well. So let's take a look at the attitude assessment here. So the attitude assessment is going to be a score based on whether or not we believe this person is likely to behave in a counterproductive way at work. And bear with me 1 second here while I pull up this assessment. And I apologize about that. There we go. So the assessment for the attitude is going to use a similar scale, but not use that bell curve, but a simple line score here. So that score is going to rank him on different areas that may be of concern regarding his attitude or likelihood to behave in a counterproductive way. So that'll range from hostility to, again, conscientiousness, integrity, and then lastly, that same good impression scale. It's going to tell us whether or not we believe they answered in an honest manner. Again, we're going to get some behavioral interview questions for Dan. And those behavioral questions will be, again, a great tool for you that you can print, and we even have some note lines if you print those off that you can take with you to the interview and ask those questions based on the results of that attitude score. So if we move on to the References tab here, you'll see that we can quickly view the references that Dan provided. So here we gather their contact information, and we can give them a call and rank whether or not they gave us positive or negative feedback for Dan, the delivery driver. If we save those will be there for our review going forward, where we can quickly and easily access them. The last tab, the Documents tab, is going to be a place where we can access information that Dan may have uploaded in the interview. If he added a resume, you can see it here. But this Documents tab, you'll be able to review information and access it here going forward. So let's say that we've decided to move forward with Dan as an applicant. He did great on his assessments. His experience looks great. Let's go ahead and move them to from an applicant to a candidate. Before we do that, I want to show you, though, these 3 statuses I mentioned before. So if we want to save someone for later, we can do that here. We can also remove that applicant as well as removing that applicant and sending a rejection message. So that's going to be a simple way of saying, thank you so much for applying, but at this time we won't be considering your application. In this case, both remove applicant and remove applicant send rejection message will do the exact same thing, except for this one will send that email instead of just moving them to the removed status. Let's go ahead and make Dan a candidate to move him along in that application process. So you'll see now that Dan is a candidate instead of just an applicant, and he's a candidate for this delivery driver position. One thing you'll notice is that this does tell us the fact that a background check is required immediately. So you'll know whether or not you need to run a background check here. You'll also notice that when we click the candidate button, we have a longer list of options of what we can do now. At any time, we can always move Dan back to the applicant pool if we did this by accident, for example. And we can always save him for later, remove him, or remove and send it a rejection message as well. So let's say that we've decided to interview Dan. We can request an interview here. So if we choose request an interview, you'll see that we have two different options that we can choose from. We can request an interview system or through the PeopleMatter system, or we can request it via another form of contact. If we choose to request via another form of contact, it's simply going to show us a number where we can request that interview and choose request interview. If we do that, it would change its status to requested interview. I also want to show you the request interview through the PeopleMatter system. This is going to send an email to Dan where we can insert a time for us to meet for his interview. So if we send this off, it'll go directly to Dan requesting that interview, and it'll also change his status from candidate to interview requested. Let's say then we completed the interview process. We can choose this interviewed option, which will move his status to interviewed instead of interview requested. And that will tell us that we have completed the interview process with him, and now it is that point where we make a decision whether we'd like to offer him a job or not. So the next status would be to offer the job. And if we offer the job, we'll choose the position we want to offer him for. And once we've selected the job that we want to offer him for, we have the ability to send him that email saying that he's been offered that job. Once that's taken place, we can actually go about hiring the candidate. So if we've offered them the job, we can call them to do so or communicate with them. We'll then go through the hiring process. So we can choose hire candidate here. And if we choose the delivery driver and choose next, you'll notice that we'll get this message here that's saying we have not run a background check yet. So a background check is required for this individual, and we'll go to the background checks to be able to actually run that background check. On this screen, we can simply choose from the drop-down the appropriate background check that we need to run. And then we'll receive a list of items to make sure we have the appropriate information for Dan. So if this information has all been provided to us, we'll make sure that we have the correct information that he's sent over to us. And enter that information here. And at that point, we can actually run that background check. So when you are in the system, you'll see background checks as a few different statuses. The first being background check is being processed, which means that your team is still going through the process of reviewing that background check. Once it's actually completed, you'll see a proceed status for that background check, meaning you can go ahead and hire that person. So you'll see that the background check results are still in process, meaning we can't hire this check is complete. So for the sake of moving forward, I'm going to go ahead and act like we didn't hire Dan into the delivery driver position, but instead we're going to hire him as a server rather than that delivery driver. It looks like server's required as well, so we will do a different position here. And since that's still processing there, we'll be able to see that now it did proceed. So we have that proceed status, and we should now be able to hire Dan into that position since that status is proceed. So if you refresh that page there, we'll see that that status already came back automatically. It is proceed, so we can move forward the hiring process now. So let's go ahead and hire delivery driver Dan into this position. So we choose that job. And then we're going to choose the specific status for this individual of part-time and the day that we offered him, as well as his hire date. So hire date is going to be the first date of employment for this individual, the first day that you all will be paying them for working for you all. We'll then enter our pay rate here for this individual. One thing you'll notice is if I enter a whole bunch of extra zeros accidentally, it's not going to let me proceed until I fix that and pay them the correct amount. Once we enter that pay rate, we can choose the hire option here. And that is going to bring up a message for us to be able to send directly to Dan to initiate the onboarding process. In this email, you'll see a link for Dan to follow to begin the onboarding process. If he hasn't already done so, he'll create an account and then complete all of those onboarding tasks. So once I officially hire Dan, you'll see since this person is already employed, please manage them from the team member's record. So if we go to the team member's record, we'll see a few different items across the top here. First of all, the onboarding tasks. So from this screen, we'll see the different tasks that need to be completed. First of all, we'll see all of the items that Dan needs to complete. Important note here is that you need to have Dan complete these items before his first day. So we'll send that request to him, but I would recommend a few days before, if you see he hasn't completed those tasks, to send them a follow-up or give them a call to follow up on that information. So we'll review those items and see that Dan hasn't completed them. Just for the sake of showing these items to you, I'm going to jump over to a different team member's record to find someone that has completed their team member's tasks already. So we can narrow down on someone that has onboarding status of manager's incomplete tasks. So that'll be a great way for you to find people that you have actions on. So let's open up Sally's server and take a look at her onboarding tasks here. So if we look at her team member tasks, we'll see that she completed everything that she needs to complete. But if we go back to the manager tasks, we can see we have a list of items that we need to complete. So what I want to point out here is that all of these items are going to be very important for you all to complete. They're items that will be necessary for you all to complete in order for that integration to take place. So all these items with the star are absolutely required for you all to complete, and they will not, the integration or sending that data to your other system will not take place until you've completed those items. The actual integration will be sent over once you've completed these items, as well as Section 2 of the I-9. So it's important to note here that you're required to answer this question regardless of whether they're a driver or not. So you'll see that it says if driver provides the driver's license number, If not applicable, type NA. So it's important that you still type NA. Even if they're not a driver, we do need to answer these questions. So we'll enter the driver's license state, as well as expiration date for that driver's license. We'll then be able to answer the equal employment opportunity information if this person didn't answer that on the application or onboarding. If they answered those, these items would not be there. But since they didn't answer them, we'll be requested to answer these questions. So once we've completed all the onboarding tasks, we'll be able to go to the I-9 process for review and verification. So if we select the I-9 employer review and verification, we'll be taken to the electronic completion of Section 2 of the I-9. So let's say we get to this portion and we need to review all of these items, and we notice that Sally entered her Social Security number wrong. We have the ability to send this back to the employee for correction, and that's going to give them a link to be able to follow this, to be able to correct the item that they need to. So I would recommend to them of what they need to correct. So please correct your Social Security number. And that will take them to the page where they can update their information. If we send this off, it will change the status of this I-9 document to waiting for the employee. But for this scenario, let's go ahead and just assume everything looks okay here. We'll then need to select document information they provided to us, so whether it's a list A or a combination of a list B, C document. Let's select the U.S. passport for this example, and we'll then be requested to answer the document information, so it's the U.S. passport, enter the document number, as well as the expiration date. Once we enter that information, we'll choose Next, and we'll review that document information. And you'll see all that information. You want to make sure that that is officially correct. On the e-signature page, we're going to check off the box agreeing that to the best of our knowledge, these documents were provided by the employee, were accurate, correct, and legitimate documents. The date here that's going to be the hire date. If for some reason this changed, and let's say they started sooner or later than expected, this is where we'd want to update that information. This hire date is important, obviously, and certain dates will be based off of that, so we want to make sure that it's updated correctly, especially for Section 2 of the I-9, and recording that employment information there is going to be very important. We'll enter the title of the employer, so your title specifically, so the general manager. This information will be auto-populated, so you won't need to edit that. But then we'll check off this box agreeing to the e-signature. Type in your name to sign the document, and we'll save and complete that document. So in this case, you see that we updated the hire date, so it's going through the process of making sure that's updated across the board. And that shows that that's been completed successfully. So since this is a test environment, I'm not able to actually send off the e-verify case at that point. So I want to show you guys in a video what that's going to look like for you all when you're actually submitting an e-verify case. So in this video, this individual is starting that I-9 documentation from a slightly different screen that I'll show you here in a second. But that's from the Manage I-9 documentations on the home screen. So in the same way, they found someone that was waiting for the employer, and Elaine Goodell, they started her I-9. So that's going to be the same action that we took in clicking the I-9 on the employee's record. To verify the information, select the document, enter the passport type and number. They're completing the same exact steps that we completed a second ago, as well as entering the expiration date for that document. So once they've review that information. They're going to electronically sign this document, same as we did. But what's going to be different, and this is what you all will see within your system itself, is that button's going to say Submit Verification, which means that when you're completing Section 2 of the I-9, it's also going to trigger that E-Verify case. Once you've completed that E-Verify case, you'll see two options, one for team member onboarding if you want to go back to the team member's record. But in this case, they're going to go to Manage E-Verify to show you the example of closing out an E-Verify case. They're going to find the individual there and see the case details for this individual. All the information that we provided them, a request to confirm information that they've provided to us, or E-Verify has sent to us. In this case, it's a picture that they provided to us for us to verify. And we have two options here to select everything looks okay if this is the person, or this is not the person that I hired, and E-Verify would provide us those subsequent steps to take action from there. In this case, everything looks okay. So that is going to change the status to employment authorized. At this point, we can actually close out the case. We'll answer these two questions regarding the person's employment with us and submit that information. So that is the E-Verify process that you'll go through. Like I said, instead of you seeing this screen here, you'll be able to go to Manage E-Verify Cases. I want to jump back to the team members onboarding and take a look at one further step that we'll need to take regarding tax credit processing. So if we go to the tax credit tab here, we'll see that this individual did not qualify for any tax credits yet. So they haven't qualified for any because they're being processed. So as a result of this person qualified for as much as $9,000 in tax credits. So it gives us a list of items that we need to do. So we would download the instructions and complete those tax credit options based on what they provided us to do. So tax break will give us items we need to complete. They'll give us a form here that we would fill out and send in follow-up to those items based on the information they provide. If you have any questions at any time about this, you can contact PeopleMatter support at taxbreakllc.com, and they'll be able to assist you with any steps you may need to take. So that's going to be an important step, as you all will want to make sure we can get those tax credits. It's a great tool for you all. Let's go ahead and jump back to the home screen and talk through a few of those quick links that we didn't cover quite yet. So on the home screen, we have a few other options here at the bottom. That I-9 documentation screen is going to be a place for you to begin the I-9 process for your employees. So on this screen, you could quickly start the I-9 like you did on the employee's record earlier, but you could quickly search for individuals with waiting for employer status, meaning you all have action to take, and you could start those I-9 documents from this screen. It's going to be a quick, easy way for you to find all of those I-9 documents all in one place. The E-Verify cases screen is going to show you all of your E-Verify cases that you have and the action you need to take for each one. When you log into the system for the first time, you'll be required to take an E-Verify training, and you can access that by going to Workspaces Administrator and either choosing that E-Verify cases or I-9 document screen. It's going to pop up with a big pink icon there for you to begin that training. It's going to be a 4-section training that you'll go through, and then there'll be a 10-question test afterwards that you'll have to take. You'll have to get 7 out of 10 questions right. You can take it as many times as you need to pass that test. The background checks, you can quickly view all of your background check statuses. You can see all of the individuals and their status for that background check. So we can see Dan delivery driver got to proceed, and we can narrow down based on the status, the date, and we can find those background check statuses and keep up with whether or not we can proceed through hiring that individual. So once you've completed all the onboarding tasks for the individual, then you've completed Section 2 of the I-9 and completed that tax break information in terms of hiring the individual to be complete within the system. We'll have progressed steps. I would encourage you all to utilize the process guide that your team has provided you. Those will walk through all of those steps that we just talked about, and we'll make sure that you go through those appropriately, and it goes step by step through everything we just did. And it will be a great tool for you all in terms of going through the hiring process. As a last item here, I want to talk about some of our resources and how you can best utilize PeopleMatter if you ever have any questions or issues that come up. So as I said before, orange buttons are a key thing within our system. So this Need Help button is going to give you the ability to do a few things. You can contact our support team, you can chat with our support team, but you can also use what we call Walk Me's. So a Walk Me is going to take you through the process of completing a certain event in the system. So this one is, how do I hire a candidate? So if we click that option, it's actually going to show us each step we need to complete to hire an individual. It's going to take us step by step through the system, asking us to complete certain filters, and taking us through that process until we actually hire that individual. It's a great way to refresh your memory on a certain process and help you really go through those items or those filters to make sure you're setting that up properly, as well as hiring someone in the appropriate way. You can always exit out of them to stop at any time, but a great tool for you all to walk through the hiring process. The other item you'll have here is in our Smiley Guys talk box, is our knowledge base. So if you click that knowledge base, let's say that you guys log into the system for the first time and you say, I know Jared told me to take the E-Verify training, but I totally forget how to get to it like he told me. If you type in E-Verify training here and search for it, you'll see a knowledge base for how to access E-Verify training in PeopleMatter. This is going to walk you through those same steps that I talked you through earlier. When you log in for the first, go to Workspaces Administrator, and on the home screen you'll either select E-Verify cases or I-9 documentation, and then you'll receive this required E-Verify training screen that I mentioned earlier. So definitely encourage you to access our knowledge base. It's going to be a great resource for you and probably the quickest and easiest way to get one of your questions answered. So definitely always come to our knowledge base, type in your question first. If we don't have a knowledge base article there for you, definitely use our support number here. That's somewhere where you and your applicants and employees can call if you're having any issues within the system. So your applicants and employees can call if they're struggling through the application or if they can't complete their onboarding, they need to reset their password, whatever it may be, they can do that within the PeopleMatter Support Center. You all can also call if you have any questions. The support number is right there for you. And as I mentioned earlier, definitely use the guide that your team has provided you. That'll be your best resource as it's specific to you all as a company. That'll walk you through step by step through the process. But like I said, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to call our support team. We'd be happy to assist as much as we can. We hope this training session has been helpful for you all and hope you enjoy utilizing our system and hope you guys have a great rest of your day.